Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome all of you today to the Denice Show, and to all of Americans' veterans. I want to say thank you so much for your sacrifice, your commitment, and your duty to country. It's so appreciated. The Denice Show stands with America's veterans. And today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Benjamin LAGERSTROM-IRISH. He was an outstanding candidate for U.S. Ambassador to the Dominican Republic under President Trump's administration. He is a former wrestling promoter in the Dominican Republic, a man who Nicolas Maduro, the dictator of Venezuela, who was elected as president in 2013, put a bounty on the head of today's guest. And it's incredible, this man's story. He is a lobbyist for factions of the Dominican Republic government. He works in the private sector as well. He's a Republican Party leader from New York. Benjamin, welcome to the Denice Show.
Well, Denise, thank you for having me on. And I want to say Happy Veterans Day. I want to wish a good Veterans Day. It's never a happy day, but I want to wish a good day to all of our veterans. And I want to thank all of our men and women who've served. Without them, nothing would be possible in this country. We live in the greatest country on earth, and I am astounded. I am very upset to see how our veterans come back here to the United States, and they have been, for the last 15 years, denied essential services such as health care, such as jobs programs, but we give those services and those programs to people who come here illegally in the middle of the night, who cross the borders illegally. We give those services to them, but we don't put our veterans first. That has to change. That has to stop. The Trump administration is working diligently on that.
Yes, he is.
And I just want to say hi to all of my friends in the armed forces and all of my family in the armed forces. I just want to tell them God bless you, and we love you, and we thank you so much for everything you do for us.
And I appreciate you stating that about the Trump administration. I know President Trump has done more than any other past president to support our veterans, to create educational programs, to help lead them into private business enterprises, to provide more healthcare opportunities, private healthcare opportunities. And Mr. President, if you're watching this broadcast at some point, I want to thank you for being the first president of the United States to attend a Veterans Day parade. I was just so pleased at the president's remarks today, Benjamin, in New York City. And I want to thank the president for doing that. I know the president has used his salaries over the last 3 years to upgrade veterans' causes and cemeteries, etc. And we appreciate the president for that. Mr. Benjamin LAGERSTROM-IRISH, I want to talk to you today about an explosive topic that I thank you for bringing to my attention. Apparently, the leadership in the Republican Party may not be aware of the fact that we have infiltration from people that take on the label of Democrat, who are really in effect socialists and communists, that have come up from Latin American countries and moved to places like New York City, Pennsylvania, Florida, and the like, and who are working to undermine and sabotage Republicans who are running for office. And before we get started on that, I want to take the audience back to the introduction. I understand that your life was threatened. You've indicated that a bounty was put on your head by Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela. Can you explain to the audience what that was about?
Well, my life, Denise, wasn't only threatened. They actually tried to take my life in late 2015 in the Dominican Republic, but they couldn't succeed, and they couldn't get the job done. And the reason they couldn't get the job done is because I have the big man upstairs on my side, the God above. And, good always wins out over evil.
Why?
And that's just the plain truth, and that's the way it is. So why did Nicolas Maduro decide to threaten me? Well, that's what dictators do. That's what tyrants and murderers do, is they bring this game of intimidation to the point, of taking another human being's life and going after anybody who challenges what they're doing. But what they're doing is rooted in evil. It's rooted in Hitler-like behavior. Over 500,000 people have been murdered in Venezuela.
Yes.
This is a serious. We have 4.6 million refugees, and this entire war in Venezuela is a battle between two drug cartels for control of a shipping route to the United States. So why would he threaten me? Because they're killers, they're drug dealers, and they're genocidal maniacs.
Did you provide the intent? Let's back up and unpack this for a moment. Did you inform the Trump administration that there were two drug cartels that were essentially fighting for control in Venezuela over a shipping lane?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And could you please identify these two drug cartels that are fighting for power and influence in Venezuela?
Sure. The Juarez and the Sinaloa drug cartels. But they're not fighting for control of Venezuela, Denise.
Okay.
What they're fighting for is the contract to be able to move their goods through Venezuela and Cuba, through Haiti and into the Dominican Republic, and then further on to state of Florida and Puerto Rico and other points from there. So that route is controlled by the communist regime out of Havana. So they're not fighting for control of those countries. They're fighting for who gets to put their product through. And that product involves more than just drugs. That product involves, weaponry. It involves human trafficking, and all that other stuff that goes with it. So that's what that fight is over.
And restate that, please, for the audience. This is the Juarez cartel there in Venezuela, and the other cartel you named is the
Sinaloa. These are Mexican cartels.
That's what I was.
Cartel
Yes.
That operates on behalf of the Venezuelan government is the Cartel of the Sun, the Cartel del Sol. So these two Mexican cartels are fighting for access to those roads and those trafficking routes as provided by the Cartel del Sol.
Okay, and this is incredible. This is incredible.
It is. Absolutely it is.
And these individuals, these cartels, have been fighting it out. You say there are 4.6 million refugees. Has this 4.6 million refugees, have they come into the United States, or have they just traveled into other Latin American countries, Central American, and Mexico?
Denise, the situation in Venezuela is so bad that these refugees go anywhere
they can. Okay.
The majority of them walk into the jungle. They walk into Colombia. They walk into Brazil. They try and get into Guyana. Lots of them have arrived in the Dominican Republic. The ones who are fortunate enough to have money to fly out of Venezuela and can get out of Venezuela,
they do
go
so.
to places like the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And they wind up here too in the United States.
They do, because they've wound up in my classroom. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but go ahead. No, go ahead. They go to Dominican.
It's a very sad situation. I'm sure you can see the shock and the terror in their eyes.
Right.
And what's happening in Venezuela is a human tragedy. It's a very serious national security concern for the United States. Okay, that is a fact. It's also a horrible thing to see people living in such situations
Squalor and terror. Yeah, they're
people
terrified.
who are eating dogs, who are being put into cells and burned alive by this crazy dictator Nicolas Maduro. So, I hope he meets his end very soon.
Hopefully, and of course we know that the Iranians have a fairly large footprint there as well. We know Islamic terror groups are operating in the country as well. Can you speak for just a moment, sir, about cooperation between the drug cartels, the Mexican cartels there in Venezuela, fighting for control of these trafficking roads and lanes for drugs and human beings? Can you speak to the cooperation between the narco terrorists and the Islamic terrorists? Have you?
Yes, I can.
Okay, can you speak?
I'm happy to. Well, I'd like to send a message to all these narco organizations, to all the drug dealers, the narcotraficantes. The people they're doing business with from the Islamic world are going to turn on them eventually.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is a relationship that drug traffickers from Latin America are sharing with extremist Muslim terrorists, and it's not going to end well. Okay, because they're going to turn on the people they do business with over ideological reasons eventually, and everything that they're involved. This is not going to have a pleasant ending. This will never be a profitable business for them. They're never going to be able to get all of their stuff through, because the more they do business with these guys, the more the international community of civilized nations will respond, because we are certainly not going to let countries like Iran begin to barter with their nuclear weapons and their high-powered rockets and all of that with these countries 300, 500 miles south of Miami.
But hasn't Iran already done that?
Will not let that happen.
Hasn't the Iranian regime already done that, sir? I mean, with respect to their heavy footprint in Mexico and Central America, don't we already see the Iranian regime developing a tremendous footprint in these regions? And isn't that why Secretary of State Mike Pompeo indicated in an interview just the other day that he was deeply concerned about Iran and that all options remained on the table?
Yes, you're 100% correct about that.
Okay.
What I was saying was that they're pushing the envelope more and more.
Yes.
Okay, but as far as building mosques, as far as setting up paramilitary organizations, I've seen this in the Dominican Republic. We see it in Haiti. It's absurd, but that's corruption, and that's what happens when you have these foreign governments and they are allowed to operate in any way they want and undermine the authority of the United States. Corruption is like a cancer. It keeps growing and growing and growing, and eventually you just have to either remove it or it takes hold and it takes control. So we've seen this cancer of corruption take control in Venezuela, and the country has gone under. We've seen it take control in Cuba. Don't believe what you see on television. Don't believe what you see on CNN, the communist news network. No. Life for Cubans is horrific.
Yes.
There are no human rights in Cuba. Haiti has fallen apart as well. And now we come to the Dominican Republic, the last down that pipeline of trafficking, which follows the route of the natural gas lines. You have the Dominican Republic, and I am hoping, praying that it doesn't come to that for the Dominican people.
Do you believe
you have a country that's 95% Catholic, Christian, and that would be just a tremendous tragedy.
Do you believe, sir, that President Trump will begin to enforce the Monroe Doctrine and go back to the historic origins of the United States of America wanting to protect the Western Hemisphere from infiltration by communist groups and Islamist groups. Do you think that might be something going forward that the president will really have to take a look at seriously, or is there enough work being done right now with special operators and CIA types that they're keeping a lid on it? I mean, how do you see that playing out, sir?
Well, I think it's a combination of the two, but I definitely do see this as a developing trend. It's a very positive trend that is developing amongst red-blooded American patriots. We are starting to come around and call out these communists and these socialists for what they are, which is one and the same and nothing good. And you saw it yourself during the campaign when Trump spoke about Hillary Clinton, and he called her a communist. He flat out called her a communist. So do I think that's just something that is developing in Washington? I think it's not developing; it's already there. We know the evils of communism. We know what that is, and we know how horrible it truly is. And we understand that the difference between the Trump administration and the Democrats and Barack Obama is that the Republicans, the Trump Republicans, are going to enforce anything that protects our way of life and our way of liberty, and communism is the antithesis to that. So
Sir,
it's a combination of both.
Let's go to the Democrat Party here in the United States. We know that many individuals that are running for office, whether they're running for president or they're running in the House for the House of Representatives, a seat in the House or a seat in the United States Senate, identify as Democrats, but they are truly socialists and or communist, and they support the socialist ideology or the communist ideology. And you put out a statement, sir, I believe it was on Sunday, that indicated that there would be no support from Republicans for Dominicans living in the United States who, quote, burn the candle on both ends of the wick, end quote, calling them corrupt. Can you speak to the infiltration of socialists and communists who have come into the United States from the Dominican Republic, who are working to upset or destroy or bring an end to Republicans that are running for office?
Absolutely. Let me preface that with a question. Do you like being lied to?
No.
Yeah, I certainly don't like being lied to. Okay? So when I say they're burning, that is a very powerful statement, and I made it because it's a powerful statement and it says a lot. And what it says is this: I am not going to support anyone who lies to me about what they believe in. You see, this is not a wrestling show. I know I come from the wrestling business, and I know I come from promoting wrestling in the territory, right?
Right.
But that's entertainment. Politics. And I'm not a professional politician. Running for ambassador was the first political campaign I ever ran for anything. But politics is real because lives are at stake. People are living, people are dying. There are people dying right now as I speak to you. So to discuss more about the Dominicans who come to the United States or who are in the United States, who are posing as Republicans, and they are really communist sympathizers, and they really have ideas and sympathy for socialism and all of this, and who are Democrats, and they are out there. Look, you see, go to 145th Street and Broadway, okay, in New York City, and you'll see this. You'll see organizations, communist organizations, like the one Miguel Estrella runs here in New York, the Duartiano Institute in New York. People who come and shake your hand and smile to your face, and then they stab you in the back, okay? So these people are the pawns of the Cubans and the Venezuelans. And that's a very important point to make. You see, Dominicans have not had much in the last 10 or 15 years. The only thing they have right now in the country that is really their thing is politics. And the Democrat Party plays very heavy into that. But during this last election cycle, which President Trump won, the last presidential election cycle here in the United States, the Clintons screwed over all the Dominicans in New York. You're talking 630,000 registered voters in New York City. Okay? If you donate, they went to taxi drivers, to waiters and waitresses, people who were cleaning floors, and said, look, we know you really don't have it, but if you just pay half of your credit card bill, if you'll just pay half of your rent, or if you skip it, if you give $1,000 to the Clintons, they're going to give you more welfare. They're going to put judges in that will release 9/11 money. They're going to appoint people into positions to fix your visas, and they're going to legalize everybody who's here illegally. Okay? And people bought into this because they come from a country that is corrupt, and that's the way things go there.
So the Clintons tried to buy off the refugee population from these third world countries, is what you're saying.
Well, you know something, Denise, I have a list of 9,000 Haitians that were repatriated to the Dominican Republic by Clinton foundations. I'll give you some names here. By foundations like Socialist Nacional de Amistad Dominico-Haitiana. That's the National Association of Friendship between Dominicans and Haitians. That's one of these Hillary Clinton NGOs, which is like a charity in the Dominican Republic. Then you have APRODEMA, the Association Pro Desarrollo de la Mujer y Medio Ambiente, which is the help for women. You have Cactus and Sejuri, and you have all of these groups that were formed, and they repatriated these people to the Dominican Republic. So they've used and abused these people for years, and they've done it with the Cubans, and they've done it with the Venezuelans. And now you have the Dominicans are here in the United States, and they're just pawns for the Cubans. And that's really what they're doing. So they're running, or they have ideas to overthrow the government. We have organizations like Coalition Patria in the Dominican Republic. They have members here in the United States. They've approached Donald Trump Jr. They've caused major breaches of security at Republican events which the president's son has attended. And these people have submitted paperwork to the United States Department of Justice that is public record, asking for assistance from the United States to overthrow the Dominican Republic. These are people who worked in our embassies under the Democrats.
Okay.
Just several years ago.
Okay.
So that's the connection. I'm just trying to answer your question.
No, excellent. No, excellent. You said something to me about people that are dishwashers and gardeners running around with walkie-talkies in Florida. What did you mean by that, sir?
Well, here's what you have. You have people who come here who are approached on the streets in places like Little Havana. They're approached on the streets in places like the South Bronx and Washington Heights.
Okay.
They're approached by creeping communists. They're approached by Cubans and by Venezuelans who tell them, you need to overthrow your country to save your country. And they indoctrinate them. And they give them walkie-talkies. And they tell them that, they're working for the Democrats. Really what they're doing is they're gathering information and they're participating in a coup attempt against their own country. Some of them realize and understand this. Other people think that they're just part of a political organization. But if you go to the churches, if you go to the social clubs, if you speak and meet with these people, and you keep your eyes peeled, like I do, if you look on the bookshelves, if you sit in the office and look at the paperwork, you'll see the rhetoric, the writing, the publications, Hugo Chavez, Fidel Castro, Che Guevara. Communism is a very serious marketing tool to these people who are disenfranchised politically. So the question, Denise, is what do you do with them? Okay? Now, I believe the solution to this is to reintegrate them into the political spectrum in a way that does not present a danger to the values of the United States of America and what we stand for, and brings aid and assistance to those people who are truly needy, to the people who are starving, to the people with HIV and AIDS. This is a program that I wanted to implement through the United States Embassy directly in the Dominican Republic, because money gets sent to Catholic charities, orphanages for children with HIV and AIDS, and 90% of it gets stolen by politicians. It shouldn't even go through their hands in the first place.
That's right.
So I say we should take these people. Look, we can't just alienate people who have been disenfranchised.
Right.
That's the reason they're behaving like they're behaving.
Have you spoken?
You can't.
Right. Have you spoke to the president? Have you spoke to the president about this?
I've communicated with the White House and I've received responses. Yes, I have.
Excellent.
I can't discuss that too much because some of it's classified, but yes, no, they have responded. And that's something that's important to understand about the Trump administration.
They're on it.
Is the Trump administration, yeah, exactly. They're on top of everything.
And I'm thinking U.S. aid, which is, ladies and gentlemen, through the United States State Department. USA does a lot of work, and of course, countries around the globe. And I'm wondering if U.S. aid might somehow be better constructed or reconstructed to make sure that these orphanages or groups that require immediate help get the kind of help they need without it running through those governments that are socialist governments or communist governments, corrupt governments, in a nutshell. Benjamin.
Well, I wish I had you as my teacher in school.
Oh,
I spoke with a little girl yesterday here in New York, and I was asking her about her studies in school. I think she is in the 6th grade, and she brought up that she took a trip to the Freedom Tower, the former World Trade Center site here in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, the old World Trade Center had a dance floor, and you could see as far south as Philadelphia. And she said, oh, my teacher told me that we attacked ourselves. Okay? And it's just amazing to see how far these people are willing to go with this. And I find it abhorrent, okay? And I also find it dangerous. And I want you to take note that my father was in the United States Navy, and he was stationed during the Cuban Missile Crisis off the shores of Santo Domingo when these people wanted to launch nuclear weapons into the United States and kill millions of innocent Americans.
Right. So
prior to the Trump administration, who, by the way, increased the embargo factor against Cuba, okay, you had Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, people like Madonna, okay, glorifying and idolizing the same people who gave the most serious, legitimate attempt to destroy our country with nuclear weapons in history. And that says a lot. So this can't go unchecked. And you're also very correct about all this stuff with Iran and the illegal oil and everything to that extent. That's currency.
Well,
that's a very serious matter.
I want to get into that in another broadcast. This has opened up so many avenues that need to be further discussed, more deeply discussed, and I'd love to get you back on the broadcast, sir. We've got to call it a day for this Monday on Veterans Day. But I want to thank you so much for coming on the Denice Gary Show and exposing what's going on. I would like to hear next week, if we can get you back on the broadcast and schedule you for next week. I'd like to hear more specifically about how the socialists and communists have really infiltrated the Democratic Party and how they're running to upset Republican candidates that are running for office in 2020 or have already run for office in 2016 and 2018. I hope we can get you back on the show very soon, sir.
Well, that's a definite, and you have my commitment.
Thank you.
And it was really great to come on your show because it did open the doors to these very, very serious topics.
Yes.
And, putting this stuff out there is exactly what's needed. So thank you very much for having me on, and thank you for everything you're doing for this country.
Oh.
We really appreciate it. We need more people like Denice Gary. She tells it like it is, like it really is. Thank you, Denice.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. God bless you, and stay safe, and we'll talk to you next week.
God bless you too, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good day. Ladies and gentlemen, what a tremendous interview. This has brought so much to the table that needs to be exposed, and we're going to keep moving forward on this in the days and weeks ahead. There's a tremendous amount. We've talked about how the Democrats have suggested that President Trump was involved in collusion with Putin. There's tremendous collusion going on, ladies and gentlemen, with corrupt regimes by members of the Democratic Party. And we've got to get into that going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like us to go to our Frugati's commercial. This is the best Italian restaurant here in the Central Valley and all of Southern California. Let's go right to it.
I want to tell you about a place I love to go, Frugati's Italian Restaurant. Very few locations here provide seating outside in front of a fabulous water fountain with an atmosphere that is reminiscent to me of eating outdoors in Venice. This is real Italian food by real Italians. And what makes it even more so is owner Ralph Frugoletti, who nearly a quarter century ago brought a wood fire oven from Milan, Italy to make, like his mother, fresh homemade bread and pizzas. Moreover, Frugati's Restaurant offers you not only the very best in Southern Italian cooking, even importing the finest ingredients for authentic Italian food, including a fitness menu. After all, Ralph has represented the United States and Italy, competing in the Master Championship Games. He knows all the right food for good fitness, so check out the menu. After today's broadcast, run over to Frugati's Italian Restaurant and Catering at 600 Coffee Road here in Bakersfield. And after a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday service, stop into Frugati's for a great lunch. I'll see you there, and tell Mr. Ralph Frugoletti that Denice sent you. Salute. Bon appetito.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, I hope that all of you will check out Frugati's Restaurant and thank Ralph Frugoletti for being an advertiser on the Denice Gary Show. And let's thank Scott Baker. For those of you that are working for major defense and aerospace companies, please give Anatase Products a call. Give the former Marine Corps officer, Scott Baker, he's the owner and operator there at Anatase Products, a telephone call, 661-822-6873. Again, 661-822-6873. Every kind of bit of hardware, aircraft bolts, anything you need for anything that flies, including every satellite that orbits planet Earth. Anatase Products can handle it. Give them a call. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Denice Gary Show. Again, I want to say to all of America's veterans, thank you so much for all that you have done to keep America safe. I think about that fateful day at the 11th hour, on the 11th day, in the 11th month of 1918, when the Great War, the war to end all wars, the war to save democracy, came to an end. And we've had to continue to fight wars to preserve our nation's freedom. And it wouldn't be possible without America's fighting force. Thank you. Those ladies and gentlemen that have served in the United States Armed Forces, thank you so very much. This is Denice on the Denice Gary Show, signing off.